again, and then because then I've got this recording, and yeah. So the question I'm looking at today was from a user who asked they want to remove text from an XML file but haven't had any luck with the XMLUpdater. What they're trying to do is remove a block that says remarks. And I looked at this and thought, hey, I'm going to do that. And I set it up to show. And then, of course, Takashi comes along and answers the question perfectly. So, what am I going to do? I'm going to show it anyway. My colleague Mark suggested using a regular expression to get rid of that remarks, which I've done the same myself. I'm not going to criticize him for that. But really, when we're using XML, we should use the XML specific functionality, because with string replaces you don't always know, you don't have the same level of control over it, I guess, in an XML structure. So, and yeah, like Takashi, I was thinking, well, maybe I should do this as well, because I want to make sure that it is the user just not doing it quite right, which is what I think was happening. I wanted to make sure the XMLUpdater did work. And this is very ironic, because if anyone tuned into that webinar I did with Dale where we did random acts of transformation, and we picked a transformer completely at random, and we tried to describe how it worked and what it did, and I'm pretty sure we got the XMLUpdater on that point, and we didn't know, we couldn't get it to work, we didn't know how it worked. So this is me making up for that as well, I hope. Okay, so what I've got here is I did a quick Google search for XML sample file, and it came up with a book catalog, and I thought, okay, well, I'll use that. So what I did is just I put that book catalog in there, and that's my XML, and then I ran it through the XMLUpdater. And just to show you some of the things we can do, we can delete a tag. So I could say get rid of the price from books. So this deletes a tag completely. So we should see the price tag has disappeared, which it has. Unfortunately, I can't zoom in on this dialog. It's just small like that. So that got rid of the price tag. I could say delete the contents, keep the tag, but delete the contents of it. And there you can see we've still got the price tag now. It's just as a single price slash rather than price slash price, just to make it tidier, I guess. So we just removed the contents of it there. And the other thing I could do is, for example, just replace contents. So I can say, look at the price, replace it with some plain text, and that plain text is, I don't know, $13.50. And we can do that. And that should, yeah, updated the price. You'll notice I put a few remarks tags in there as well, just to practice playing with that. And again, this should work the same way. We can say delete /catalog /book /price, not price, sorry, remarks. So we can delete the remarks tags, which is what the user wanted to do. But because that's a table of multiple options, we can still carry out that price replacement as well. So the price is still $13.50, but we've got rid of the remarks that were in with the books. So pretty straightforward, and I think the user in this question must have just got something slightly wrong in their XMLUpdater. They said they can only select a span. When going to text attribute selection, only removes one span. So I'm wondering if they were trying to do something with the value and they got span in here or something, and I don't know. But this is the way that that we should it should work. It does work. Let's see. So yeah, the other thing I noticed about Takashi's solution was his path says / remarks rather than mine, which says /catalog /book /remarks. And I figure that that means search out all of the remarks and get rid of them. Like if I go back and look at this source, I've got a remark under this book, and I've got a remark under another book, but I've also got a remark in the catalog itself. So they're at different layers. Maybe you can show it a bit better in this dialog. There we go, because I can increase the font. So we've got remarks, this is a great book, and remarks, this is a catalogue of great books. So we've got different, let me just copy that and put it in up here as well. Oops. I don't think the indenting matters too much, but so with mine, when I run this, it gets rid of the remarks at just that level, but it still retains the remarks at the top level. And I suspect that if I do Takashi's method, which was just / remarks, that it will get rid of everything. It just says, don't worry about the hierarchy, just get rid of it all. So that, yeah, so the tag has gone there, and it's gone under all of the books as well. So yeah, so that was an interesting thing that I learned from there, because that's a very specific thing on it, very specific syntax on there. And one of the other things I found earlier was if I have a / on the end as well, then it doesn't work. So it's catalog book price /, and you think, well, that doesn't look really any different, but it doesn't work because I think it's looking for, yes, it didn't do anything to the price there. And I think it was because of that extra /, it's looking a further level in the hierarchy, and it couldn't find it. So that's why that didn't work. Sorry. So yeah, you got to be very precise on here, and yeah, you don't need the extra / on the end, otherwise it would fail. The other thing I wondered about but hadn't tried was what happens if, like, is it case sensitive? If I have price with a capital P and a capital I and a capital E, like, is that the same thing? Will it still work? And I honestly don't know if it will work or not. No, it won't. So basically it is very much case sensitive. If I put that back to lowercase price, it should work again. And it made me wonder about that, because they had an uppercase R in remarks in the user's question, and that was, let's see. Yes, it didn't do the remarks now because it's case sensitive, but it did do the price because I set it back to that. Yeah, I don't know about finding the information about that. I suspect. See, I'm really, really not an XML expert. Let's just have a look if it says we're looking for the XML path. Yeah, it's xquery. I figured it might be xquery. So that's basically the one to look up. I mean, the help does have some examples on there, but obviously, since it's xquery, you can look up that information online. That's interesting. We can sort of shoehorn an attribute in there using an xquery, an FME xquery function, which is interesting. I have never, well, I haven't tried it recently enough to remember how to do that, so I'm not going to try now. But basically, yeah, these queries are all xquery, xpath, whatever it's called. Let's do a quick search. I mean, I'm sure I've looked at this before. Oops. XPath syntax, yeah. So selects nodes or node sets in a document. So, oh, that's even got a book example there. Yeah, so there you go. There's Takashi's double slash. Selects all nodes that match, no matter where they are. Selects the current, so you could even do dot, dot, and attributes with an @ sign. So I did notice that some of the content in here was book ID equals book 101, 102. So I suspect that @ symbol lets you change those values in there. I think those are the attributes in a tag. Yeah. Selects all attributes that are named Lang. So maybe I'm just going to check that. So what was the ID? So maybe if I say / @ID. Let me see, /@ID. Okay, so select all of the values that are a book ID number and just put iname in there for want of anything better right now. Yep, if you've got to leave, I understand it's probably about 8 o'clock in Europe, so I'll see you another time if you're leaving. Yeah, that didn't quite work, did it? It didn't replace the ID. Yeah, I'd have to practice with that. I'm just going on what that page says. Yeah, that's something I'd have to figure out if I needed to do that. The one final thing I'll mention about this is that the XMLUpdater takes attributes from attributes that are coming in, but it doesn't take it from attributes that are coming in through the main document port. It only takes it through the update port. So for example, if I create an attribute here called XXXX, and if I create an attribute on this stream that's called YYYY, and then I say I want to replace the book price with an attribute, we only see the YYYY. We're only seeing the values that actually come in through the update port. I should set a value in there, shouldn't I? $99.99 or €99.99, wherever you are. And that should update that with that value. But yes, it's very interesting that it doesn't actually, there we go, it doesn't get that value from the incoming document, it only gets it from the update. And this is why we always need to have an update feature coming into here. Even if you don't use a value from there, even if I just set that to something static in there, I still need, in fact, even if I'm not using that field whatsoever, I still need a feature coming into that input port. If I don't, it just won't do anything. It just says result is missing. So I always need something coming into that port just to trigger the update. And in this case, it's just easier to copy that creator feature, and now it'll work. So that's the other thing about the XMLUpdater that I had to mention. So that was that question. That was my question of the week. I really like that, and the fact that Takashi answered it before me, it doesn't really make any difference. I think we can remove the flag on that. Yeah, it doesn't really make any difference. It was an interesting one to get on video and to have people see. So that's good. So let's see what. The other question I had this week was actually a question from myself, because I've been installing a few different versions of FME recently. And I looked in this folder on my computer, the FME folder, and it's got all of these installation files in there. And all these cab files, and it's taking up gigabytes of space. And it's not like I really need the space now, but I just wondered, can I delete those files? And somebody pointed me to the documentation and said, yes, look at this tip. So take note of the destination folder location. You can remove those files to save disk space. So basically, when you run the installer, we updated the installer. I think there were some reasons, and I can't remember what they were offhand, but we updated the installer so that it sort of extracts some files to a local location, and then it runs the installer to install them properly. And the place it extracts to, you can actually delete those. You just can't delete, obviously, the files that are in program files, FME. But yeah, I can delete all of that, which is good because it's like 6 gigabytes in each folder. And especially since, like, I just installed 22.268, and it uninstalled 22.255 and 245, so there's no reason at all I could possibly need those. So I can just delete those for sure. I mean, I'm a little bit less certain about... I mean, it does say you can delete them, so I don't see why that should be a problem. But I might be a bit more careful and just keep that one, just in case. But yeah, you can delete that folder and save some space. So that was my other question of the week, and the fact it happened to be a question from myself, well, that's fine. I can't give myself the question of the week badge anyway, so I won't do that. I thought it was interesting though. Yeah, a couple more comments, more than questions that I'm going to answer. One of the questions in here asks, could we create a pre-configured header and footer, creating an FME Server app? So in an FME Server app, you can, as you see in the screenshot, you can set it up so you can set your own browser icon, your heading, your logo, your banner, etc. And the user was saying, well, could I set the defaults for those so they all get filled in by a default value? And no, you can't do that, but they suggested adding it as an idea, which they did, and I've been to that idea and I voted it up because I think it's a great idea to be able to fill those in by default. But the other thing somebody else mentioned was this is Hamish down in New Zealand. I noticed he mentioned that you can basically copy some files into the FME installation and it will use those. For example, he copies his logo into this images folder on Tomcat and it uses that as a default somehow. So that I thought was really interesting, and thanks for Todd and for Hamish down in Apley in New Zealand for mentioning that. That was really useful. And the final thing I wanted to point out was something from my colleague Dave. Somebody asked about multi-part geometries and deaggregating them, and how can I aggregate only the truly multi-part aggregates or deaggregate only the single-part aggregates? And my friend and colleague Dave suggested using the geometry refiner transformer. And I just wanted to mention that because it's really not a very well-known transformer, but it probably should get a bit more love than it gets. Performance refinements on geometry. Basically, it's all about even settings, even refining the geometry, like aggregates and paths and things like that. So if you have a path that's coming in and it's only got one segment to that path, it'll replace it with a line instead of a path. And if it's got consecutive line segments that are all paths, it'll merge them all together. And it does things with aggregate geometries as well. So if it's an aggregate that's only got one part to it, then it just replaces it, drops it as an aggregate, I think. Actually, let's just see if that's the case. If I aggregate two things together, like so. Actually, no. If I aggregate just one thing together and then refine it, we should find that it creates an aggregate here. Feature information, yes, that's an aggregate, but there's only one part to it. So the geometry refiner sets it back to what it was before. Like basically it just it just promotes that single aggregate part to be the feature itself, because there is only one part of that aggregate. So that's what the geometry refiner does. And again, it's one of those things that not everyone knows about, but when you do, you can find it useful occasionally. And that's really all I wanted to talk about today. I noticed there were quite a few, I'll just mention, there were quite a few questions that talked about string editing, and this one here was transposing and concatenating values and strings, and this one was splitting them up. All very similar questions. So, and this one was talking about getting rid of white space between different words. So text obviously seems a big deal, and I just thought, well, if there's any text transformer do you think we're lacking? Because obviously some things, these two particularly are talking about changing headings and values into, splitting them up into different features or records. So if you figure that there's a transformer that we're missing, then do let us know, and yeah, we can look at adding something like that. I think that one removing the spaces, that's totally an FME hub transformer that we should do to do that, because they want to keep a single space, but they want to get rid of all the duplicate spaces in there. And I think that's really pretty straightforward to do. And there is actually a white space transformer. And I say white space instead of spaces because if you look at this transformer, this finds white space. It doesn't replace it. But it's very interesting that it's looking for, let's see, what does it search for? There we go, 34 possible values it's looking for. So it's looking for spaces, but it's looking for horizontal tabs, line feeds, vertical tabs, form feeds, OGM space marks, M spaces, N quads. I don't know what any of these are, but they're all different UTF codes that could mean this is a space. Even if it's not a proper space, it's like dots or something like that. So I think that's very interesting. So if we do create a hub transformer to clear out those spaces, we should make it so it works with all of those white space types, and not just the space character, I think. So yeah, that I found really interesting. I didn't realize there were 32 different types of white space. So yeah, that really is it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Apologies for the sound. I can't believe that. I'm going to have to write a checklist and put it down on my desk and say, before you hit the go live button, check your microphone, check other things that are on there. If you were at the start, you'll have noticed that we had music playing at the very beginning, which I thought was... I just had some fun earlier this week. I found that YouTube gives you free music files that you can add to your videos. So I thought, hey, let's add a few on that. So when I turn off the streaming today, you'll perhaps hear some outro music to play us out of the presentation. But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching this stream. Thanks for watching the video. Yeah, have a great weekend. It's Friday. Question of the week is always good because I know it's Friday. So yes, have a great week. And if you're looking at the video online and you're wondering what I'm talking about, I'm going to cut that bit out where when a microphone wasn't working. So So have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week for whatever's going on next week. Okay, folks, have a good one.